Well, there I was. I went out to the side of the house to throw some trash away, and since I was out there, I decided to go around front and check the mailbox. Went around front, yeah, there was mail in the mailbox, but there was this giant cardboard box, sort of bulging. I picked it up. It was heavy. It felt like, oh, this could be something like a typewriter. Carried it back into the garage. There it sat on the workbench as I eyed it. I sliced it open, and sure enough, it was a typewriter. Let's check it out. Stay tuned. Well, the typewriter was really well packaged in the box, and the entire case was in this large plastic Ziploc bag. Speaking of which, here's the case itself. There was a nice typewritten letter from the guy that sent it to me, Vincent. So this was unexpected. Vincent sent me this typewriter, and he says, here's a very interesting typewriter that I believe was made in Czechoslovakia in the 1960s. He's pretty close. Now for the catch, this machine has a flaw, a faulty return. But that's what inspired me to send it to you. So he's referring to the carriage return lever. Well, the carriage return arm on this Commodore is not secured in place. I took off the two screws on the side panel so I get some room. And I see there is a threaded hole on the bracket. And that hole threads through this hole in the side plate right there. And so I've searched around in my bins and I found a screw, and I'm going to try to get it threaded in and get this arm secured again. So after I found the right size screw with a matching nut, which I believe was a 540 thread, kind of an oddball thread. I expected it to be metric, and it looks like it's some oddball imperial size. For that carriage return hinge bracket, I did add a lock washer to it, and subsequently I've been able to get it to stay secure, nice and tight, doesn't flop around, and it works really good. And then I proceeded to take the whole thing apart, get the chassis out, and service it. So we have these controls for the bichrome and for the tab set and clear. And I figured I needed to take off these knobs in order to remove this upper body shell. And they just wouldn't come loose. I tried pulling on them, they wouldn't come loose. Well, it turns out there are 4 screws. Here, and 2 in the back behind the carriage. And once you remove those 4 screws, the upper body shell comes off easily. And we can see that those sliding knobs are actually captive into the upper body, like that. And they just interlock into the key levers themselves. To remove the chassis from the base plate, I just need to take off the screws underneath on the feet. And now I can pull the chassis right off of the base plate and take it out and clean it all. The other trick I didn't mention earlier was this rear panel behind the carriage. 2 screws, take that off. That'll help you to, if you put the carriage far to the left of its travel, the top of the body shell comes off and around the carriage like that. It's easy to take apart and service it. And I figured out the best way to carry the chassis out to the garage, to the workshop for cleaning is, even though I've removed the bottom screws, you can use the bottom panel as kind of like a little tray to carry the chassis in so you don't cut your fingers on the sharp little edges if you have delicate fingers like I do. Look how nasty dirty that is. Yuck. So then once I got all the cleaning done and the chassis was working pretty good, I started looking at its performance, and I had this problem where if you set the right margin far enough to the right of the carriage, then when you go to do a carriage return, it would hang up. It would stop, and you'd have to hit the tabulator all clear button in order to make it go any further to the right. The right margin is not all the way to the right. It's about a little over an inch from the far right. And when that's the case, the carriage can go to the right margin and you can return it just fine, no problem. However, if you move the margin all the way to the far right here and then try moving the carriage, it stops. It won't go any further, and what you have to do is press this tabulator all clear button. It pivots this tab clear rod, and when it does that, it clears the bracket for the carriage to go further to the right. So this bracket for the bell clapper is what was interfering with the edge of the tab all clear bar. So I pushed it back, I reformed it, and now with the right hand margin all the way to the right, now it works fine. Just had to reform that bracket, and the bell still works. So one thing I don't like about the layout of the controls is the line spacing selector. This little knob with the plastic cover is sitting right up against the left side of the paper bale bracket. It's almost like you have to lift the paper bale out of the way in order to adjust the line spacing selector. So I was able to reform both of the paper bale brackets here so this doesn't hit the line spacing selector. And it makes it a little bit easier to adjust with the bale down, but it is a little tight. And then I just had to adjust the on feet in motion, which you do with the chassis out of the body shell. There's adjustments on both the right and the left side for the on feet in motion. Other than that, that was about the only adjustments I did. The thing cleaned up really nice. Let's look at all the features, shall we? Okay, let's look at the machine, starting with the front keyboard, and on the very right side is your tab, set, and clear. Clear is the minus, set is the red plus, that's mostly all missing. I'm going to have to paint myself a plus there. So this is the margin release. Here is the backspacer, and it has an exclamation mark that's lowercase, and then the 3/4 key is above it. Your 1/4, 1/2. The rest of the keyboard is very similar to an older US style keyboard. You have the equals and plus up here. There's no number 1. You have to use the lowercase l. And then the tabulator key itself was on the left side to the left of the Q key. And you have your bichrome switch right here, which does not have any colored logos. The upper part is red, which is counterintuitive, right? The middle position, of course, is stencil. Bottom position is the upper half of the ribbon, or the black side, as I'm using it now. Shift, so when you press either shift key, both shift keys go down. Shift lock can be released from only the left side, however, the left shift key, spacebar, etc. Here is the nifty Commodore logo. Let's look under the ribbon cover. So the ribbon cover is held on with a little spring, similar to the way a lot of the Olivettis are, and then they also have these little hook feet on either side of the cast metal cover that engage little tabs in the body, just very similar to an Olivetti. And then just in front of the left ribbon spool is your touch control, 1, 2, or 3. I have it currently set to 2. So this typewriter has these back tension arms, spring-loaded back tension arms that help control how much slack is in the ribbon spool. They appear to be standard-sized American, basically sized spools, not the DIN international sized. And it has the reversing guides right here, and it looks to me like it operates on the back tension method of reversing, similar to the Olympia SM series, instead of using eyelets. Okay, this machine has card guides that are very similar to the Olympias. They are clear plastic, spring-loaded with engraved marks for your typing line and letter position. So both of these will articulate forward, which is really great to keep them from breaking off. And you can see the card guide here, the paper guide, this wire one is very close to the platen, which is nice. And combined with these card guides that go really close to the paper bill rollers, it means you can feed paper in the machine often, and it'll go right underneath the rollers. You don't need to flip the paper bill up. So it feeds paper quite nicely. Okay, so on the left side here, you have your line spacing selector. There is a 1.5 and then a 2 setting. It is a half line machine, meaning that each click of the ratchet is half a line. And then above the 1 is a 0, which is the temporary line spacing disconnect. You put it back to the regular line spacing, and you can re-achieve the same line spacing. And then your line spacing clutch for permanently changing the line spacing is the button here on the middle of the left platen knob. The carriage release buttons are the square unmarked buttons right behind there. There's one on each side. And then, yes, it has a magic margin-like system that has magic margins there. And no, it does not have margin indicators like the Hermes 3000. So in this respect, it's more like a royal magic margin setup. And then it has the paper guide right here. The paper bill has rulings, and it has rubber rollers, the position of which are adjustable. The Commodore 2200 features a telescoping flip-up paper support arm that has rulings, similar to an Olympia SM. And then on the right side of the carriage, in the front, you have the right-hand carriage release button, the right-hand magic margin, and then this button in the back is the tab all clear button right there. Okay, the right platen knob is here. It just turns. It doesn't pull out or anything. This knob here is the paper release lever. Really nice, very ergonomic. It lifts up the paper bale as well as moving the feed rollers away from the platen so you can easily pull your paper out. And then down here is a carriage lock. It's a positive carriage lock. Pull the lever forward, move the carriage to the middle, and it's positively locked. To release it, flip it like that, and your carriage is now free again to move. And let's put the cover back on. You have to engage the little tab underneath the little thing like that, on both sides like that. Push it down to lock it, and it's in place. This Commodore is a half character space machine. So when the type bar moves toward the print position, it moves the carriage a half a character space before it prints, and after it prints, it moves the other half character space. This feature is common on a lot of European typewriters and enables you to insert a missing letter in an already printed word. Well, let's type something on a scrap of paper, shall we? Do have to adjust it. The feed rollers are not perfect. They are a little worn. This is a Commodore 2200. Now, according to the serial number year code, there's a single digit that's the last digit of the year. It's a 0, so it was either 1960 or 1970. I believe it's 1970. And then there is a 3-digit code that's like the model code, and this is a 221 model. And there are like 5 other 221 Commodore models in the typewriter database. What's interesting is of those, only one of those has the tab function. Mine has the tab function. I have not yet entered it into the database, but I will soon. And then after that 3-digit model number, the 6-digit serial number. So looking at it, it appears to me that it is a 1970 made Commodore Model 2200 with the model code of 221. These were made in Czechoslovakia by Consol. They're very heavy. We'll look at the weight of it in a moment. Very solidly built. If you look at the logo, It is the same logo as the Commodore Computer Company of the 1980s. And this is very interesting to me because I was involved in the home computer movement in the early 1980s, but I didn't actually have a Commodore. I had one of those Timex Sinclair 1000s marketed in the States, basically a Sinclair ZX81, the little wedge doorstop, plastic wedge membrane keyboard type of home computer. But I had friends that had both the VIC-20, Commodore VIC-20, and the Commodore 64, which were both very popular, especially the Commodore 64. It had a huge following up through the early IBM PC days, and even when the Macintosh came out in 1984, there were still a lot of Commodore 64 fans still using those machines. But it has that same Commodore logo. It is the same company, but they licensed the model and logo to be made by Console in Czechoslovakia, at least this model line. Now, there were other Commodore branded typewriters that were made in different parts of Europe and didn't have quite the same. They had the word Commodore, but they didn't have this colored logo that we know from the computer days of the 1980s. Well, this typewriter has the nifty red vinyl accessory pouch in pristine condition. It has some cleaning brushes, right? And it has a cleaning cloth, and it has this owner's manual. Oh, and the owner's manual has a postcard from the Superstition Mountains in Arizona. Okay, that's pretty cool. Well, this owner's manual appears to be for the model 2200, which is the same one that I have. There is a little tag, a paper tag that says Model 2200, the right serial number, a US keyboard, and it is the gray colored, and it's Commodore, Toronto, Canada. Now, the picture on the inside flap of the owner's manual shows this model with the tabulator feature. So this is a Commodore 2200. The model code is 221, and there are other 2200 221 model code Commodores in the typewriter database, but only one of those has the tabulator feature, which is kind of interesting. And the owner's manual that I have apparently shows the tabulator feature is a standard feature, not an option. So I'm just guessing here that perhaps it's dependent on model year. That's the only thing I can figure out. This is a 1970. I think the other machine in the typewriter database that has tabulator is a 1968. But I could be wrong, and I welcome any corrections to that assumption. So we know it was made with the tab feature. What's interesting, however, is in the back, toward the back of the manual, on page 18, they show this section called Typing with the Carbon Ribbon. And what it is, you unthread the cloth ribbon out of the machine and you install a spool on the left side. There is supposed to be a bracket that you take the cover off, the ribbon cover, and you can pop this carbon film thing onto a bracket on the left side and thread it through and then have carbon imprint typing. The carbon ribbon arrangement is supplied only when ordered. Okay, so that means it is a special order feature. You could order a Model 2200 with it or without it. So that explains it. It is an option feature. But anyway, it's a neat little manual, but what I find really interesting is on the back here, written in what appears to be ballpoint pen, is Commodore registration card. This is handwritten in script. Code, it has the serial number, the model number 2200. The dealer's name was Perth Office Machines. The address is in Ontario, Canada. Purchase date July 5th, 1971. So the date code of the year is 1970. This was purchased in July of 71. So that's the registration information about the dealer and where and when it was purchased. And look at that nifty early 1970s secretary posing with her Commodore typewriter. Isn't that pretty cool? Well, so it's really neat having the provenance, at least, of knowing where this was bought from and a little bit more about it. And I really like this high-quality vinyl pouch. How cool is that? Okay, let's talk about the weight of this machine. Well, there's a little technical data section in the front of the manual. It says weight of the typewriter with the case is 22 pounds or 9.95 kilograms. I weighed the Olivetti Studio 44 and it's 20.6 pounds in the case. And I've considered the Studio 44 to be one of the largest, heaviest, so-called medium-sized portable typewriters, but the Commodore 2200 is almost 2 pounds heavier in the case. Outside the case, it is 17 pounds or 7.65 kilograms. So it is a very solid typewriter. There's no plastic panels. With the exception of the ribbon end caps, everything, all the body panels are cast alloy. Yeah, it's a very heavy typewriter, and surprisingly so. Just moving it, you want to set it someplace, find a good place for it. So kind of like treating it like a semi-standard typewriter when they're this big and heavy, but you can still carry them, and technically it is portable. You can carry it like that with one shoulder drop down, trying to compensate as you carry it from the car to some place. I love this machine. I'm surprised by how nicely made it is. It cleaned up really well. Of course, I love the logo and the branding as well. But in any event, if you have even one typewriter, I encourage you, get out there, put some paper in it, start writing, and write every day. And as always, yes, stay creative and have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye for now.